going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Success is one of those things everyone views differently and have their own opinion of what it means to be successful. For most, it's maybe having a dream job or your own business, doing something you have a passion for, making enough income not to just maintain, but to really live and enjoy life. You build on top of that, have a beautiful, healthy family with your significant other and a nice home that you own or can afford the mortgage on with no problem. For most men or women, I'm sure that sounds just like the American dream and the true definition of success. But as I'm getting older, I'm starting to see and notice even the people with the most money, cars, big homes, and well put together families are not always happy. Whether it just never feels like enough or it's deeper issues. A lot of the time, we look at people on the outside and think they have it all. I can't wait to get to that point in life. But you really never know what a person is going through on the inside or have to do to make sure they keep up that image or lifestyle. It becomes exhausting. I'ma even go old school to say to whom much is given, much is required. And my great grandmother used to always tell me, never be jealous or envious of what no one else has or their lifestyle, because you just never know what they did to get that or have to do to maintain it. Mental health is more important than anything out here, because if your mind is not right, you can't be to your full potential, or you might become a danger to others, including the ones you love the most. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to North Carolina to discuss a case of an actor who had a breakdown and did the unthinkable to his family. Robert Kraton Jr. was born in the 70s and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Ever since he was a little boy, he had a passion for acting, music, and just entertainment in general. Landing small roles in shows and plays as a child, and always displaying his talents at family reunions and church where he sung in a choir. As Robert got a little bit older, his passion grew. He attended an upstate New York prep school where he excelled in sports and started to participate in skits and perform comedy. After going to the school for 2 years and being voted most likely to be an actor, Robert returned home, where he recognized he had another talent as well, rapping, in which as he got older, landed him to perform on BET's 106 & Park, and also being a comedian, opened up for comics, winning cash prizes. By 2010, the 6'3", 200 and some pound Robert, who some call Tank, due to his breakout role he landed on the true TV show Southern Fried Stains. The show was in the reality category and based on an ex-state trooper and his team performing sting operations in the South. But outside of acting, Robert's personal life was also going good. He had met the love of his life, a woman named Athalia. Her family tree is of Jamaican descent, Kingston to be exact. Athalia would grow up stateside and was motivated and driven to do big things. Growing up in Miami and South Carolina. After graduating high school, Athalia went off to the Army and traveled the world as a heavy equipment mechanic in the 2nd Infantry Division. She went to places like South Korea and other places, even living there for a period of time. Once returning home, the veteran and Army sergeant and actor Robert would start their family and tie the knot. They had 4 beautiful kids. The family settled in a beautiful home and community in High Point, North Carolina. Robert still was landing roles in shows and movies, and Athalia worked hard and was making big moves as well, becoming a certified life coach, certified interior designer, public notary for the state, even attending North Carolina A&T as a psychology student. The family seemed to have it all. The husband and wife were a power couple, making big moves. All of Robert's colleagues described him as the motivation and light in the room, always having encouraging words, eager to work, and get the job done. A big dude, but a gentle giant. And everyone he was on set with said his thing was, let's finish so I can get home to my family, who everyone claimed he loved and talked about all the time. By 2023, the couple's oldest was 25. Then it was 18-year-old Kasim, 16-year-old Nala, and 10-year-old Nasir. Now in their 40s, Robert and Athalia still seemed to have everything in order. But over the years, it had been questions about Robert's mental health. Police had been called to the family's home multiple times, as the man seemed to be having mental breakdowns. In January 2022, police even served an involuntary mental commitment order on Robert, but nothing really came out of it. Fast forward to January 7th, 2023, early that morning, a local police received a call about shots fired coming from a home, screaming, and two people, a male and female, running down the street screaming for help. They first ran to a neighbor's house, and the young man told them his father was shooting. They called police, and the man stated he woke up to his father having a gun in his face. Scared, he immediately reacted. While his father froze, he was able to knock the clip out the gun. Him and his girlfriend, who was staying the night with him, was then able to flee the home. But the son was worried about the rest of his family. Police made it to the location. Once they entered the home, it was a scene even the most trained officers were not ready for. They found a man, a woman, two teenagers, and a young boy all suffering from gunshot wounds, and unfortunately already gone. They were soon identified by family and neighbors as 45-year-old Robert Kraton Jr., 46-year-old Athalia Kraton, three of their kids, 18-year-old Kasim, 16-year-old Nala, and 10-year-old Nasir. As detectives talked to the family's oldest son, it became clear his father Robert snapped, and it was a case of a murder-suicide. For reasons unknown, he did that to his family, then turned the gun on himself. Family and friends were devastated and confused on how such a beautiful, loving, thriving family could come to such a tragic end. People that knew Robert had trouble processing a man who loved and adored his wife and kids doing this to them. As police released the details, the situation was deemed a mental health breakdown and that Robert just went off the deep end, but no one knew why or would ever know. Athalia's family planned a service for her and the kids, with little to no mentions of Robert at all. And the High Point community, in which they played a huge part in, also paid their respect for the family. Rest in peace to this family, Athalia, Kasim, Nala, and Nasir. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to their family. Also rest in peace to Robert. I know mental health is real, but I don't know to what extent a man would want to end the lives of the family he was supposed to protect. Being a provider, living a good life in the American dream is all good, but it means nothing if your mental state or health isn't right. So many of us out here drive ourselves to breaking points, either trying to chase the so-called bag to survive or keep the bag to keep up an image, that we lose track of everything else in life, sometimes even losing ourselves. I can only imagine the kind of pain and trauma their oldest son is going through. To lose your siblings, mother and father at one time is something no one should ever have to deal with. I hope he finds healing and strength to keep going. The sad part about the situation and situations like this is always more questions than answers, as no one knows exactly why Robert snapped. If you ever feel unstable to your breaking point, go get help. We can't look at ourselves as weak. Everybody can go through breakdowns, but some people are a little bit more prone than others. But at least if Robert would have checked himself in somewhere, it's a possibility this would have never happened. So remember, we gotta succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Yeah, man, that's a tragic story. Rest in peace to that family, man. Like I said, I definitely send my prayers and condolences out. But yeah, y'all heard it. I ain't gonna talk y'all head out too much on this one. Leave it in the comments. Remember to definitely be respectful. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This your boy Tony 2 times. This another episode of Hood Tales. I'm out.
What's up, fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of Hood Tales, I'll be taking it to Kansas City, Missouri, to discuss the case of Tanisha Harris, a mother of one and minister who tragically lost her life at the hands of her husband, Robert Lee Harris, an ex-church elder. But before we get into this video, welcome if you're new here to our channel, and welcome back to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so and join the Tony 2 times family. Go ahead and click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. And if you're rocking with the content, don't forget to hit that like button. Feel free to share this video. Make sure you watch until the end to hear my full commentary on this story. All right, let's jump right into it. Church, a place where supposedly born-again Christians congregate to worship, fellowship, and hear the word of God from their pastors and/or leaders. Over multiple decades, the church has had its claims to fester an environment that can be toxic, to say the least. Some churches have their cliques, inner circles, and hierarchy that perpetuates conduct that can lead to a congregation's demise. However, despite those things, most churches still thrive in attendance and allegiance to their pastors and leaders. Congregants would blame it all on the enemy, aka the devil, if anyone attempts to expose any of their wrongdoings. Sadly, there are some people who attend these churches who have pure intentions and are really seeking salvation in solitude. They want to serve God wholeheartedly, but sadly are too blind to see or unfortunately accept questionable behavior to feel a part of something bigger than themselves. Tragedy and an eventual scandal struck a non-denominational South Kansas City church, once known as the Repairers of the Breach Christian Center, to its core after one of its elders was accused of slaying his wife of just 18 months. She was also a minister at the church, 38-year-old Tanisha Harris. Tanisha clocked out from her job at an Overland Park bank for lunch at 11:44 a.m. on January 8, 2018. She never returned. The following day, her body was found in Raymer, Missouri, 20 miles from Overland Park. Her husband, 30-year-old Robert Lee Harris Jr., was arrested 2 days after her disappearance and charged with premeditated first-degree hit. Robert and Tanisha met at the Repairers of the Breach, and here is how it all began. Robert, an Army veteran from Florida, found the Repairers of the Breach after connecting with the church online. According to reports, the church drew Robert Harris's attention. He and the then pastor Carlton Funderburk began corresponding. Robert visited more than once, meeting Tanisha during those visits. Robert and Tanisha reportedly had a long-distance relationship before Robert moved to Kansas City to be with her after he was honorably discharged. Both Tanisha and Robert had daughters from previous relationships. Tanisha's daughter lived with the couple, and Robert's daughter would come to visit on holidays and breaks. On the outside looking in, many would say that Robert and Tanisha were a beautiful couple. They both seemed to have a passion to serve their church. They dedicated themselves and were a part of the church's foundation. Tanisha had been there from the very start, while Robert joined leadership later on. 7 years prior to her passing, Tanisha and about 6 other young people had started the new congregation, branching from another church in South Kansas City, called It Is Written Evangelical Worship Center. The couple got married in July 2016. The union was officiated by Carlton Funderburk. After the news broke about Tanisha's tragic slaying, Carlton Funderburk said that there were no signs at all that would suggest any trouble that could lead to the narrative that came in police statements. He doted on the couple, saying that they were a loving couple. They were a wonderful newlywed couple whose love had bloomed in their work at the church. One parishioner who also was a minister said it was unreal and difficult to believe that Robert would want to end his wife's life. She said he was her spiritual counselor. She went on to say that Robert was their go-to man when they couldn't reach their pastor, and that he loved Tanisha. The minister also told news outlets that Robert's daughter had just come to visit over the Christmas holiday break shortly before the terrible tragedy. On the day Tanisha went missing, Overland Park police first made contact with Robert when they were called to the 8000 block of Perry Street around 4 p.m. for a domestic disturbance at the apartment the couple shared. Robert was found alone in the apartment, according to police. Several hours later, around 8:30 p.m., Robert called on the police to return to the apartment, and he told them his wife was missing. When Robert was questioned, police said they became suspicious, especially after finding red stains and broken glass in the apartment. Robert later admits his role in Tanisha's disappearance. At around 2 a.m. the next day, police in Raymore discovered Tanisha's body in a trash bag discarded in a field. Robert was later arrested. Detectives continued to work the scene at the couple's apartment late in the morning after Tanisha's body was found. As they continued their investigation, police sorted through nearby trash dumpsters and searched a car in the parking lot. Robert Harris was held in jail on a $1 million bail. An autopsy revealed that Tanisha passed away from strangulation and had other non-fatal injuries to her body. Several witnesses testified in Robert's preliminary hearing. Tanisha's mother was the first to testify. Tanisha's mother testified that it was not like her daughter to ignore her phone calls. Then, according to the testimony of Robert's supervisor at the medical center where he worked, he texted her at 9 a.m. on January 8, 2018, and said he couldn't make it into work because of a car wreck. But court records indicated that as early as 9:30 that morning, Robert made several trips to a nearby Walmart to purchase a large trash can, plastic bags, carpet cleaner, and a filleting knife. A neighbor and the apartment manager also testified about hearing the loud noises from the Harris's apartment between 2 and 3:30 that afternoon. Police testified that Robert didn't seem concerned when they asked where his wife was. They tried to reach Tanisha at a number Robert gave them, but left the apartment when they weren't able to reach her. 10 minutes after leaving the apartment, police ran his name and found Robert had an outstanding warrant in another area and returned to arrest him, but he was gone. Then there was the testimony from a man claiming to be Robert Harris's lover. The man who publicly put himself out there after a Facebook Live rant, which I'll get to momentarily. His name is Stephen. Stephen, Robert, and Tanisha were all members of the church. In his testimony during the preliminary hearing, Stephen said he had a romantic relationship with Robert that entailed daily visits and FaceTime calls. The affair had been going on for about a year. According to court documents, Stephen testified that Robert arrived at his home about 1 hour after police came to his house. Robert did not immediately mention to Stephen that Tanisha was missing. Robert appeared sweaty according to Stephen's testimony. Robert then told him he needed to go home and change since he was sweating. According to the testimony, Robert later called Stephen to tell him he thought Tanisha was missing. As mentioned before, hours after Robert first interacted with the police, that's when he called them back to the apartment and reported Tanisha missing. Tanisha's car was also found abandoned in a parking lot very close to Stephen's apartment, which was about a mile away from the couple's apartment. So let's discuss the now deleted Facebook Live video that Stephen made 5 years ago. In that video, he said that he and Tanisha were longtime friends. He claimed that people from the church were coming for him because he chose to testify. He said he wanted justice for Tanisha. Stephen said that Tanisha's slaying was not because Robert was romantically involved with him, but because of money. He even claimed that Tanisha knew that Robert was in relationships with other people, including men. He claimed that some members of the church were hypocrites. He said Tanisha knew who was for her and who wasn't, and shared text messages between them discussing the matter. The explicit video was over 10 minutes long as Stephen loudly and angrily expressed his desire to do something to anyone who continued to come for him or threaten him about testifying. Fast forward to August 2022. After years of Tanisha's family awaiting justice, 35-year-old Robert Harris was convicted by a jury for slaying his wife, Tanisha Harris, on January 8, 2018. Coincidentally, around the time of his conviction, Robert's former pastor, Carlton Funderburk, went viral from the pulpit of the church at the Well for calling his congregation broke, busted, and disgusted for not honoring him with a Movado watch, and even asked if he was worth their McDonald's or Red Lobster money. He told his congregation, quote, "That's how I know you're still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted, because how you've been honoring me." Going on to say, "I'm not worth your McDonald's money. I'm not worth your Red Lobster money. I ain't worth your St. John's Nick money. Y'all can't afford it no how." Y'all, the audacity. The pastor would later apologize for the viral clip, saying it was taken out of context. It was also said that Carlton Funderburk, former pastor of the Repairers of the Breach, which is now closed, allegedly did not want congregants to bring up the tragedy of the Harrises. He probably no longer wanted to be associated with what happened since he moved on to pastor another church. In November 2022, Robert Harris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 50 years. May Tanisha Harris continue to rest in peace. My well wishes and condolences to her family. Tanisha seemed to love her husband and her church very much. Despite the claims of her knowing about his extramarital affairs, I believe Tanisha had faith in her marriage to Robert. Tanisha was described as a sweet, soft-spoken, loving, kind person and was a devoted mother and wife. Tanisha had recently started preaching in the pulpit and was named an associate pastor before her slaying. This story is just so incredibly sad on many levels. How did Tanisha even fall for this guy? Why did he really take her life? So many unanswered questions. 2 daughters, one left without her mother, and another without her father. Thankfully, though, Tanisha got justice and the family got some closure. But sadly, it won't bring Tanisha back. This man claimed he was a man of God, a healer, a spiritual counselor, and a church leader. These titles mean nothing. His heart was wicked and his intentions were pure evil, driven by greed and lust. Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't be led by man, but by God only. No man or woman is good. Only God is good. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this in the comments below. Alright fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you all so much for watching and making it to the end of this video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.
What's going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2 Times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story. Y'all keep up with me. It's like 3 stories in one. For all the day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Gangs. To really understand the lifestyle or people involved, you have to either be around it or in it. When most people think about gang culture, it's usually in a bad way. A lot of times, that's the thing. It's not the organization, it's individuals and certain gangs that have over the decades gave them a bad rep. You have some members that live by that old law. Protect the community, get back, don't hurt any women or kids, and play defense in the streets, not offense. Meaning they are not looking for any trouble, they are just defending themselves. On the flip side, nowadays, it's a lot of renegade sets that do not follow the original rules and do the opposite. Target women and kids, terrorize the community, and give a bad name to the gang they rep. Leaving the younger generation that might be curious or fascinated by that lifestyle, thinking that's what it's all about. Money, murder, and stepping on whoever isn't on what your gang is on. Once hoppers or young men or women involve themselves in that lifestyle, a lot of times they think that's the move. Get a little respect around your way, a name for yourself, not knowing if you don't follow those rules and cross that gang, it's consequences for you or your loved ones. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to Clayton County, Georgia, to discuss the case of a retaliation attempt that led to a major gang indictment. Back in 2016, a 15-year-old boy named DeAndre Mitchell had moved from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Georgia. While trying to navigate in a new state without much family around him, he would be taken in by a mother who had children of her own, around the young man's age. The family lived in Jonesboro, Georgia, but what the mother didn't know, even though she took a liking to DeAndre, he had quickly associated himself with a Crip set in that area, the Rolling 20s, to the point he knew where the gang ducked off at, and he knew where their stash house was at and where they kept their guns. The young man, being new to the area and not knowing how things worked, would pull a move that would change everything for the worse. When one day he decided to run in the stash house when no one was around and steal some guns from the gang. Being that everybody knew that was a no-no, word got out fast in the area of who was bold enough to steal from the house. The new hopper from Tennessee. A few members sent word out to DeAndre, either return the blitz or they would kill a member of his family. But little did they know, the young man wasn't even living in Georgia with his own family. Another family took him in. As they were looking for Shorty, word got back to the gang about a house he was living at on Libby Lane in Jonesboro. On October 22nd, 2016, at 5 in the morning, kids were asleep at the home, including a 15-year-old boy named Davion Coates, his 11-year-old little sister, Tatiana Coates, a few more of their siblings, and the kid's mother had stepped out that night to go to a club in Decatur, so no adults was home. While in bed, a few men crept in the home looking for DeAndre, but little did they know the young man had heard the gang was coming and left the home more than 2 weeks earlier and headed back to Tennessee. The intruders saw all the kids asleep. They saw Davion in bed. Moments later, shots went off, and then the men fled. Awakened by loud pops, one of the 13-year-old siblings in the home got up to check on his brothers and sisters. He looked in his brother's Davion room to see if he was awake. He shook him to find the young man had been shot. In a panic, he woke up the other kids in the home as they called their mother and police before going to check on his little sister, Tatiana, in her room, to sadly find she was also shot. Police got to the home to find the two siblings who never saw anything coming because they were asleep, unfortunately already gone. Their mother or siblings didn't know anything about who could have come in the home and targeted the kids, as Tatiana was a 5th grader and Davion in 10th grade and wasn't involved in any negative activities in the community. Everybody was shook and detectives had no leads. 2 days later, in another part of town, Stone Mountain, Georgia, an older couple, Samuel White, 54, and Sylvia Watson, 57, shared the apartment together with one of Sam's friends. The couple were happy and in love. Sam had even been clean and sober for years, getting himself together, and had a good job as a surgical tech at Northside Hospital. Sylvia was well loved and respected in her career as well. Everything was on the up and up for the couple, until one day, while standing outside talking, Sam was discussing a big settlement he had coming. Him and Sylvia were making plans, not knowing some men were outside air hustling. Listened to their conversation and misheard, thinking Sam was saying he had the money already. The following morning, Sylvia headed to a doctor's appointment as Sam stayed home. Once she got back to the apartments, 2 men approached her at gunpoint, telling Sylvia to get back in the car and drive. Scared, she did what she was told to do. The men guided her to multiple ATMs to withdraw money, before then telling her to drive back to the apartment. The 2 men then guided Sylvia inside where Sam was at. As they entered the home, they demanded more money before tying the couple up and searching the home, taking some TVs and electronics, before moments later, shots went off and the men left. Neighbors heard commotion but didn't think too much of it because there was often shootings in that area. Sam's homeboy and roommate came home later that night to see Sylvia and Sam laying on the floor with the apartment ransacked. He thought he was saying things before realizing they both had been shot in the head. Frantic, he quickly called police. They arrived to the location to find the couple, unfortunately already gone at the scene. They noticed the couple had been tied up and hit execution style. They got the surveillance footage from the complex that showed Sylvia entering the complex, then coming back out, this time with 2 men in the car. The one in the back seat had on a sweatshirt. As they searched Sylvia's car, they found the cup and the cup holder and ran it for DNA evidence. Their roommate and Sam's friend was devastated, as he had himself been sober for years as well. Seeing his friend gone led to him moving from Georgia back to Michigan. They were homeboys for over 40 years. The community was all shaken up as people were confused who targeted the older couple that showed everyone in the neighborhood love. Months would go by before Clayton County and DeKalb police interviewed over 50 people, including members of the Rolling 20s Crip set, who named over 8 people who were all a part of the gang that were allegedly responsible for the home invasion that left the 2 kids gone on Libby Lane. The one person whose name stood out the most was a 5th grade elementary school teacher at Tony Elementary in Clayton County. The teacher's name was Michael White. Him and others included a man named Christopher Spencer, Vernon Beeman, and a few more members that would be mentioned in a 40-plus count indictment, charged with murder, home invasion, firearms, and criminal gang acts. Michael was quietly taken into custody while at school teaching. Detectives told parents and students a case had been building up, accusing Michael of being one of the men who entered the home that night while the two siblings were asleep. This was months before he even became a teacher. The school stated they did a thorough background check, 2 actually, and nothing came up showing anything about a criminal history. Parents were in shock, stating the man was a great teacher, ironically accused of being a Crip and doing something to a 5th grader, the same grade he was teaching. While the men were all in custody, a break would come in and a double hit of the older couple. Detectives stated after the kids were targeted 2 days later in a plan to get enough money to skip town, Chris and Vernon robbed the couple, thinking they had the settlement money already, and then shot them. A break would come when one of the Crip members in the indictment was arrested in a gang shootout in Tennessee after dropping a weapon that was used in the hits back in Georgia. People were surprised the men were being accused of this, but a search of the gang stash house led detectives to guns and the sweatshirt the man in the back seat was wearing the day Miss Sylvia was targeted. The cup also had DNA evidence on it. Both Chris and Vernon was charged in the couple's murder on top of the hit of the siblings. There were still questions about Michael, the teacher, and his involvement, until social media pics and clips showed him with the Crips, including Chris, Vernon, and other members that was in the indictment. They claimed Michael tried to lead the gang after the incident with the kids and turn his life around. As the case made its way to trial for Davion and Tatiana, 9 members of the organization was accused of the attack. One of the members, a man named Jamon Bynam, stated him and other members went to the home looking for 15-year-old DeAndre. He had a gun in his hand before he alleged Michael the teacher grabbed it and started shooting. The kid's brother also took the stand, recounting that night, hearing the pops, then finding his big brother and little sister gone. Despite his testimony, Jamon will receive 2 life sentences plus 22 years for his role in the situation, while some of the other members either took plea deals or were still fighting the case. In a separate case of Sylvia and Sam, both Chris and Vernon were found guilty and sentenced to life plus 30 years, as evidence includes surveillance and DNA will link them to the couple's hit. But a major twist and break would come up in another Atlanta murder of a young 19-year-old aspiring model who was found in Oakland Park, unclothed. Her name was Bridget Shield. On May 30th, 2016, at 11:30 p.m., she was seen at a Shell gas station on Rockbridge Road and Memorial Drive. Surveillance video showed the young lady, who was supposed to meet up with some friends, nervously sitting in the passenger seat of her own car, with 2 men in the inside, one driving. The men or Bridget never got out. Instead, they gave somebody at the store some money to buy items for them. After that, the next morning at the park, someone walking found the young lady with a dress beside her and a Sprite bottle, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. As police got to the scene, they realized, unfortunately, the young lady was already gone. The only evidence was the dress and bottle. They alleged the young lady was abducted, carjacked, sexually assaulted, and while trying to run away, shot. Her car was later found behind a restaurant in the 4900 block of Redden Road. No one knew what happened to Bridget. Her mother would come out and state the young lady did do certain acts and pay to play to make ends meet, but they told her just be careful. The 2 men that were seen in her car at the gas station was never identified until DNA on the Sprite bottle came back. It led them to Chris, who was already locked up for the 4 hits on the older couple and siblings. While in custody, police confronted him about Bridget, in which Chris stated he didn't know her or knew who the other man was. He was also charged with her situation as well. DeAndre, the teen that stole the guns in the first place, was arrested in Brownwood, Texas. At the time, he was 18. He was named in the gang indictment and charged with the hits on Tatiana and Davion as well. I'm assuming since his actions where his gang affiliation led to the home invasion in the first place. In total, 5 people were said to lost their life by the hands of the gang. As far as Michael the teacher, DeAndre, and other members, I couldn't find any information or updates at this time about any time they received, if any, or plea deals. Rest in peace to Tatiana, Davion, Sylvia, Samuel, and Bridget. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to all families that was affected. Gangs are looked at as a cancer to the community due to situations just like this one. The core values of protecting the neighborhood, women, kids, and older people went completely out the window, as these were allegedly the people they targeted. When a few individuals take advantage of their affiliation and abuse their rank, that's when the big duds supposed to step in, pull rank, and handle that business. But when you have renegade sets, that's who give gangs a bad name and go against everything they originally stood for, making it hard for the ones that stand on principles. But let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. Definitely be respectful. And remember, we gotta succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Man, crazy story. I'm gonna leave this one up to y'all, man. Leave it in the comments. Let me know what y'all think. Rest in peace to all them people that lost their life in this situation. I send my prayers and condolences to their family. It's another episode of Hood Tales. It's your boy Tony 2 times. Appreciate you if you made it to the end. Love, fam. I'm out. What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in this case. Let me give y'all a little disclaimer. This case hasn't made its way to trial yet, so everything is alleged. For the day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. Beef in the streets has changed a lot since the days my father and older males in my family used to school me on it. They told me back in the days it was rules in place even when it came to groups at war. No women or kids. Everybody would chill on Sundays. You catch an enemy with his child, you give out a pass. And if it's innocent people around, no guns come out. They might even just throw hands. Not saying it was any better. People still lost their lives back then. But over time, it's no rules, principles, or morals in place. It's only you made me mad and tried me. Now I gotta get you gone on sight, no matter where and who's around. The age of killers are getting younger and younger. And unfortunately, victims are getting younger too. It's a dangerous and crazy time out here when you gotta view a 14-year-old boy as a threat, or a woman you might find attractive because she might be trying to backdoor you or set you up. Even a parent or somebody. Your child, if you have any, might get into a kitty fight, and even that situation can go left. As people don't talk it out no more, everybody is emotionally unstable and on go mode, leaving babies at risk and our communities war zones. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we will be taking it to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to discuss the case of a pool party that turned into a triple slam. Back in 2021, at an apartment complex on 2225 College Drive called Fairway View, neighbors, the community, and family were all swimming at the complex pool, cooking out, listening to music, and celebrating as it was Memorial Day. A 1-year-old baby girl named Jatari Brown was in the water with her aunt while her father was grilling. 2 young men were also at the party enjoying the day. They were 20-year-old Reginald Thomas and 16-year-old Dwayne Dunn Jr. As it was getting later into the evening, 2 other young men entered the pool area. People could see one of them had a gun hanging out, but everybody thought nothing about it and kept having fun. The 2 boys who had just came approached Reginald and Dwayne. A few words were exchanged before a fight broke out. Seconds later, multiple gunshots went off, causing everyone to run and move in chaos. The two young men that just had entered the complex took off running, but not before taking the gun from the bodies of one of the other young boys who was hit. When the smoke cleared, everyone was screaming, crying, and in panic mode, realizing Reginald and Dwayne were both shot multiple times. And in the pool, 1-year-old Jatari was also shot once, caught in a crossfire. Her family didn't wait for police and drove her to a local hospital. As witnesses called law enforcement, they responded to the complex to see both young men suffering from gunshot wounds. They tried to get them help, but unfortunately, both Reginald and Dwayne would pass away from their injuries. At the hospital, sadly, Lil Jatari would not make it as well. The community, family, and friends were devastated and confused on how a perfect day could end so tragically. No one knew who the shooters were, but Jatari's family wanted answers and justice. Baton Rouge police only had shell casings on the scene, and that's all. As they went to Crime Stoppers to get the community's help, emotions ran high as a candlelight and vigil was held in the baby's honor. Just a few days after the incident, detectives started getting information as people were saying either Dwayne, Reginald, or both were being targeted, but no one knew what the beef was about. But names would come up of two brothers who were allegedly the shooters, 19-year-old David Williams and his 15-year-old little brother, Ladarius Coleman, whose picture wasn't released due to his age. Detectives went to question the brothers before realizing they were nowhere in sight. The family of Jatari would become frustrated with the investigation as the young men were still on the loose. But more information would come in, telling police there was multiple people involved in helping the brothers pull off the hits, including their own mother, 36-year-old Latoya Coleman. She was being accused of picking up the boys from the crime scene after they called her and told her what they had just did. They shot some people and needed help to get low. She picked up her sons and the family fled to Humboldt, Texas to get away, as BR was hot. Baton Rouge detectives would send word down to Texas to be on the lookout. Not long after, they got a hit that Latoya's name was signed on a handwritten receipt at a hotel. Also, surveillance footage captured the boys and their mother at the hotel. They were picked up and taken into custody, along with another juvenile and a 23-year-old man named Christopher Stovall. As it seemed, a lot of people were involved or knew about the plot to ambush the pool party. The two brothers, David and Ladarius, were both indicted on 3 counts of second-degree murder and other charges, including stolen weapons, as a weapon was stolen from one of the men that was shot. Latoya was charged with accessory after the fact. Christopher was charged with a charge I never heard of myself, a principal to first-degree murder, meaning someone could have committed the crime for him. The other juvenile involved faced similar charges, but neither him or Christopher were indicted. The charges wasn't dropped either. They are all pending. Both brothers were denied bail, but their mother bailed out on $160,000. As more info came out, people stated Reginald was caught up in another shooting earlier that year in September. He escaped with his life, but 4 people were hit that day as well. Also a child caught in that incident. It happened in Baker, not too far from Baton Rouge. Jatari's family were happy they made arrests in the case, but stated it still won't bring the baby back. They have did all sorts of things in her honor to keep her name alive, including a non-profit called the JT Brown Movement, where they ride bikes through the city, also give bikes and toys back to kids for Christmas, other holidays, and just to give back. They have a convenience store as well, called Jatari's One Stop and Deli. The family wants her name and memory to live on, so people can see innocent lives are lost and kids all over due to kids choosing to pick up guns. I couldn't find much of a backstory on Dwayne or Reginald, as they were victims as well. I don't know what the beef was about, but obviously it was serious. As of now, this case hasn't made its way to trial, and all parties are innocent until proven otherwise. Rest in peace to Jatari, Dwayne, and Reginald. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to their families. I'm gonna leave the moral of the story on this one up to y'all. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Definitely be respectful. And remember, we gotta succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Man, crazy story, man. Rest in peace, them 2 young men. Definitely rest in peace, that baby. Messed up situation. Like I said, I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. This is another episode of Hood Tales. It's your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out.